It's time to check in again with State Representative Tacky Chan of Quincy for a Tacky Talk Tuesday, Tacky, today instead of a Thursday.
Yes, it's a slightly shift in the schedule, but both leads starting with T.
It's actually the last Tuesday of October. It's hard to believe a week from today is November 1st.
Yeah, it is. Halloween is on Monday. Election day is around the corner. It's actually a pretty late election day, being November 8th. So it's, we still got actually almost 2 weeks to election. Actually, 2 weeks today, actually, now I say it out loud. And early voting started at City Hall on Saturday. I understand there's another one at City Hall this Saturday. And mail-in ballot.
North Quincy High this coming Saturday.
Oh, I'm sorry. North Quincy High is coming Saturday.
And Sunday.
And Sunday. So there's plenty of opportunities for people to get out this weekend, as well as mail-in ballots have arrived. I received mine as well as my mom, and we both mailed our back in this week. And the tracker on the state's website and when your ballot was sent to you and when you're getting your ballot to City Hall, you can always make sure that it has actually arrived. And we know the Postal Service has prioritized any mail-in ballot to get their local city and town hall as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, we live in Quincy. We got 3 post offices, so it is really will be very quickly mailed in.
Yeah, could be same day service. You never know, right?
You never know. If you do it in the morning, it might be there by the afternoon.
Yep.
But at the same time, I mean, obviously, some smaller towns share a post office or several communities in the area. Obviously, if you live in a smaller community, you probably should get your ballot in a little early. Reminding folks, to mail-in ballots is not the same as absentee ballots. They have to arrive at city and town hall, depending where you live, the day of the election.
Yeah, so don't delay. If you get it right back as soon as you can.
Yep, and if you're one of those folks that like to pay your taxes in person at City Hall, I mean, there's going to be a drop box available, as well as the clerk's office is available. And you got questions, obviously, you can call me, or more importantly, probably better call Nikki at the city clerk's office if you have a lot of questions about how this is going to work. I will be trying to be helpful, but I think you better go straight to the source in this instance.
Oh, best advice. Absolutely. Yep. There's actually, I just found out there's a couple of non-binding referendum questions, and I guess just one district here in Quincy.
Yeah, the speaker's district.
Okay.
Mariano's district has a non-binding question regarding transparency of committee votes. It's a little bit of a inside kind of like technical thing in the State House. So all the committees have rules regarding how to record votes of their members in both the House and the Senate if you have a joint committee. I have a joint committee where I have senators and representatives. There's about 17 of us in the committee. Majority, of course, is reps, because we obviously weighted against the House side because there's obviously more of us. And it's weighted for minority party representation. So depending on how many members of minority party there are, ratio to the size of the body is ratio to the size of the committees. So when we do committee votes, there's some question about who voted for what, and some votes are voice votes, and some votes are roll call votes. It's actually up to the chairs to decide, and the internal rules as well as the joint rules of the committees dictate if roll call votes are required or roll call votes are requested by members. Now, as you all know, I live in the world of Zoom here regarding public hearings, and the vast majority of my public hearings are on video. You can watch on Facebook. A very small minority of home rule petitions, which actually only affects one community, is not done. It's actually, I do it actually request of the sponsor because it's very localized. Pretty much only the selectmen and the town administrator shows up. That's it, kind of public hearing. And so we take written testimony in those circumstances, in that very narrow set of circumstances. You can actually see our votes, and not surprising, it's mostly a slate vote because if a member objects or reserves the right, they can name the bill they want, and can say the vote rests on the remainder. So, from staff standpoint, we just kind of record it as such. It's in this world of Zoom, it's very difficult to go one by one. It's just different now. It used to be in person; it was so much easier to open votes. Just trust me, it's much easier in person. We had a system down before COVID, and it was much smoother on vote recording. So the question is really, should the public have access to votes. And the challenge, of course, is that, how you're going to get it. And to be perfectly frank, the media is not as vigorous as they used to be regarding calling us for information. They prefer just like click and run as opposed to like talking to people. And the State House is deaf of reporters. I mean, people need to understand as well. When I first started working here 27 years ago, the place was crawling reporters. I mean, you had easily 50 to 100 reporters any day of the week, even on slow days like this. I mean, right now is a very slow time period. You still had newsrooms full and cameras on the go all over the place, whether it be news crews or local crews in the newspaper area. And nowadays, I mean, it's crickets in the State House news rooms, the crickets in the Boston Herald room, crickets in the Boston Globe room. I don't remember the last time I've actually sat across from a Boston Globe reporter or a Patriot reporter or a Patriot reporter. I think it was like 7 years ago now. But a Boston Herald reporter, I don't remember the last time I sat across from a State House News Service sells the news, as you're aware of, as the State House outlet, but you don't get like a reporter locally that goes and sees it. So it's twofold. You got a certain element of the far left side as well as the far right side of both political parties who are looking to dictate how we vote on committees, essentially, which should be an internal function of the committees agreed upon by committee members. And I know it's really inside baseball, folks. And then, the second one, quite frankly, is partially media driven because, frankly, they're not there.
Right.
I'm sorry to tell you all, when you read your newspaper and read your Boston Globe and the Boston Herald, they were never in the building to actually report. And this is before COVID.
Oh, yeah. Oh, there's been, tremendous downsizing in the whole news industry for many years now.
Yeah, and it's greatly unfortunate because it's actually easier to a conversation in person rather than just on the phone, because at least you're in person, you can kind of gauge where these conversations are going. And even this format, as much as I enjoy your time, Joe, it still is difficult to gauge because on a flat screen, you lose these little nuances. And it's for all conversations as well as dealing with the news media. It's different on television. I've obviously done some television in person. Obviously, I've done some television done in this format as well. When you're speaking directly into a lens, it's not the same as being interviewed for a news article.
That's exactly right. No, it's one dimensional. It's one-sided. It's not interactive. That's right.
Yeah, unless there's an interview format, like I was on City View for about all of 7 minutes or so regarding Chinese New Year. And you're now in a real time crunch to try to get words out in very brevity, lots of brevity. When you do a news interview, now you're really running this careful gauntlet of words because they're only going to take a 10-second or 5-second clip. So every word you say becomes essential on conveying information as clear as possible with the least words possible. And it sometimes, when I'm sitting here doing it, it does rattle your brain. And I always tell newly electeds, don't rush. The reporter's not going anywhere. he's here.
That's right.
Right. And he's got a camera in front of you. And you gotta, give it a little bit of thought. And if you flub, start over. I mean, it's not like, it's not like you get it right the first time. You jump over words, you hit a moment, something gets in your eye, all kinds of real life things happen.
Yeah. And if it's, a professional journalist abiding by journalistic standards, they're going to work with you to get the correct information out.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they even check to make sure that your hair is in the right place sometimes because their goal is not make you look stupid. The goal is to try to get good information out of you, and they're not interested in making you look silly.
That's right. Unlike what we do here, Tacky.
Well, this is a tacky talk. I mean, for God's sakes. I mean, you guys all know what you're getting.
Well, as you mentioned, your legislature is still in informal session, so there's not a whole lot of bills to talk about, if you will, but there's plenty of other stuff going on.
Yeah, the only real bill to talk about right now is step therapy. The House and Senate Conference Committee came to a conclusion. The committees weren't that far apart, but the July deadline really crunched everybody as economic developments and sports betting and really dominated the headlines. And leadership teams, as well as all the chairs, were kind of like trying to get this stuff done in July. And step therapy took a little longer than I think anyone would have liked. However, the House and Senate came to a compromise today, not today, early this week, and sent the bill to the governor in informal session. No objection by any member. And step therapy is to create a mechanism by which doctors and their patients are able to use brand name or medication of their preference, overriding the insurance companies' desire to assign medication that the insurance company believes is better for you. But there is a series of tests to demonstrate that by choosing an alternative drug will actually cause greater harm than benefit, as well as the fact that the recommended drug and the drugs being used currently that the insurance company won't pay for, will yield greater results. So it isn't like a just do it kind of thing. I mean, there is requirement of consultation between doctor and patient to ensure that patient safety comes first in this matter. There was some little issues regarding dates and times, and it's small technical stuff. Just trust me. I mean, it's not a big deal. I mean, just making sure that sufficient time for your appeal to division insurance can get in, and sufficient time for response, but not so long that your patient's at risk, but not so short that no one can respond to your application quickly enough.
Right.
So this is one of those real technical things in life where you want to be sure that not just the agency, but both the patient, doctor, and insurer are able to get their information timely and get a response timely. And that was actually one of the sticking points between the House and Senate, trying to figure out that timeliness and realistically how long it will take. And we'll see what the governor does. One of the concerns I think we have is what the insurance company is going to fight this tooth and nail, because they want to dictate your medication, because they want to pay the least amount possible. In some cases, generics are all right. I mean, I'm not saying they're totally wrong on this. But in certain instances, we have specific medical conditions, generics are not the option.
Yeah, it needs to be case by case, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. So, we'll see what the governor does. Let's be frank with you. He tends to like the insurance companies. I know he's a healthcare guru, but he ran Harvard Pilgrim. So he does historically lean pro-insurance company. This is actually kind of an interesting case for the governor.
It is interesting. Yeah. I'm sure there's enough veto power in this legislature if he were to veto it.
Well, unfortunately, we're in informal session, so we can't veto.
Oh.
Yeah, this is actually one of the drawbacks of being in informal session, is that we have to come back and do a special session, do a veto override. However, as you saw, if you may recall at the beginning of this session, I mean, the speaker decided that all the stuff he vetoed at the end of the prior session, because it was this weird COVID 2020-21 circumstance, the speaker and the Senate president threw it all back right on the floor first thing in January and just shoved it back on the governor's desk.
Yep.
Even prior to formation of committees, because there was a consensus pretty much with everybody why we need a committee to review something we've already voted on.
Right.
So we just threw it back on the governor's desk, and we were able to handle it from there. So don't be surprised if the House Senate leadership, as well as the consensus of the membership, it will say, hey, we already voted on this and we all agreed on this. Let's just get this back up there as quickly as possible and bypass the joint committee process, because why do we have to have public hearings on something we already voted on, everybody's good with, right? So don't be surprised to see it. And I think early next cycle, we could talk more about this and, swearing in day, provided I'm still here, because, election day is rolling around in 2 weeks. So I still need to vote, folks. About whether or not the speaker and the Senate president will repeat that same process at the beginning of 2021, where consensus bills will go up immediately to the new governor, or do we wait it out for several months where the new governor settles in, or do we go through the joint committee process on stuff we've already done before? I can't. It's a little early to talk about that right now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But I think that's a good topic for the beginning of the cycle.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be very interesting because, I mean, like you say, there is going to be a new administration. So clearly there's going to be a whole new cabinet level echelon.
Yeah, and dumping stuff, on someone's desk where they're still forming their leadership teams at the governor's level is kind of rude.
Mm.
I mean,
you don't want to get off on the wrong foot, right?
Yeah, let's call it what it is. It's just plain rude.
Yeah. So let's talk about international stuff. Hey, look, there's a new leader in the United Kingdom again.
Yeah, Rishi Sunak is now the prime minister. He is actually the first prime minister and leader of a political party in England that is not white, is not Christian, and is Asian. So it is actually a pretty amazing breakthrough. He's also a child of immigrants. So he's actually Hindu, his belief. And he's first one to lead not just a major party, but also lead parliament. And this is actually a pretty interesting process because we'll do a little review when we talk about Liz Truss about 6 weeks ago, I think. Normally what happens is that there's an internal fight in the political party of the majority about picking a prime minister candidate. They go through multiple tiers of voting to get to two candidates. And then those top two candidates are put before the party membership, which is not elected. They're folks who basically paid to be part of the Tory party, or the Scottish whatever, and the Liberal Party, and there's like Greenies, and there's like a lot of little parties in London. But you don't actually have to like here where you register to vote Democrat, Republican, over there you actually have to be a member of the party. You actually have to pay in. You actually have to participate. You actually have to get involved, or they toss you, and the party leadership can just remove your status. And in Parliament, you've heard the term "take away someone's whip." And that's when leadership of a political party demands you vote with leadership, or they're going to take your party status away, basically strip you of your political party. Right. You lose that political party, you lose a part of the voting block. It's hard to move the agenda if you're not part of the voting block, as well as the fact that you lose a lot of the local support of your local political party, which again is an active membership. It's not a passive membership. We just, I'm a Democrat, I'm a registered Democrat, but I can do what I want in the ballot box, right? These are active members.
Right. You talk about partisanship. I mean, ours is nothing compared to theirs.
No, you don't pay for political membership. I mean, you have to put money down over there.
That's
and
right.
there's education. You have to do stuff to maintain your status. I mean, it's real. So it's only a small group of less than 3,000 people. Mm-hmm. And that small group picks of those two prime minister candidates chosen by the majority party in Parliament as the next leader, which is how Truss beat Sunak, even though Sunak had a majority of votes in the Parliament party. So because of the nature of how this rolled out, I'm not exactly sure how these rules work, as you can tell. I'm still figuring it out. But instead of going back to the Tory party members, the members of the Tories in Parliament just picked their own prime minister. And the requirement was to have 100 nominations to be considered. You have about 336 something. It's in that zone. I have to look it up, but it's over 300 Tory party members that control Parliament. And Boris Johnson flew back from the Caribbean in food drama to see if he can take another shot. And the third candidate just couldn't get past 40 nominations.
Yeah.
Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson had a conversation, and Boris Johnson pulled out in 24 hours, and still question marks of whether or not Boris Johnson actually had the 100 nomination votes. Remember, he got resigned after the fact he had 1/3 of his own political party in Parliament vote against him on continuation. Mm-hmm. So, right off the bat, he's running into a large negative base. And as a result, by Friday, there was no other 100-person nomination. And Monday morning, they declared Richard Sunak the winner.
Yep. And the Prince Charles now will confer him as opposed to the Queen, who did Liz Truss. Yeah.
Yeah. Trivia is a good trivia question, right? Who's been shortest prime minister in England? Who's the last prime minister to meet the Queen of, Queen Elizabeth II? I mean, there's a whole lot of good future trivia questions in this whole 44-day, frankly, debacle in politics. And it is something you expect from a second world country, to be honest with you. Not in a first world country. But,
kind of a banana republic type situation, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember in 2019, my last vacation in 2019, I was watching, because I was overseas in Hong Kong, and I was watching Parliament elections. It was the snap elections, and the Tory party, just absolutely rad shot over the Liberals, just crushed them all over London, all over England, except for London. They just demolished them. And the news guys were all talking about the fact that, this is going to be a Tory party for 20 years. The Liberals are going to have a hard time coming back. They're really bad and beaten up, and all these other things. And I would agree with that assessment. I mean, if you look at the numbers, at the time, I agree with those numbers. I mean, it was just devastating numbers for the Liberal Party. But again, things change. COVID shows up, economy chaos, inflation, uncertainty. Brexit is not working out the way they thought it would work out. inability to maintain, actually maintain to challenging in trade agreements, obviously a war in Ukraine, geopolitical issues in the South China Sea involves the British with China. Even though changing prime ministers, they want to maintain their leadership status among not just the European continent, but also in the G7. I mean, the Brits are very involved, and there's still a top 5 or 6 economy, depending what week we use the numbers. There's still a major economy, and there's still a major population base of over 50 million people, not counting its Commonwealth countries, which, all of which have special trade status. And now with the passing of the Queen, these Commonwealth countries, someone will have to decide whether or not they want to maintain the Queen as head of state, but remain a Commonwealth nation. And King Charles actually had a lot to do with Commonwealth nations, as well as Queen Elizabeth, both of them, on maintaining these sort of maybe kind of not exactly British colonies, right? It's sort of yes, sort of no. But I mean, you don't actually have to be a head of state. The monarchy does not be head of your state. You just have to maintain Commonwealth ties and agreement. So
I mean, Canada is a prime example, right?
Canada is easily one of the larger economies, as well as Australia. It's a major economy that's an independent nation, has its own independent government, has its own independent military. But there are certain expectations regarding trade, most importantly, visa, non-visa passport access, and military defense. It's kind of also a very interesting alliance, not an alliance. It's weird.
Yeah. Well, the Queen's still on their money.
and the Queen, on the money for now. King Charles money will be coming. So those are Queen Elizabeth collectibles, but there's been so much in circulation for so long with her face on it. But also they expected to pay a little bit of money a lot of money if you're Canada, because Canadians hate this. You pay money to the crown.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Interesting stuff. You mentioned Hong Kong. What a surprise Xi Jinping is back in power again.
Yeah, the most anticipated election. We already knew what the result was long before the result even started.
That's right. Breaking news, right?
Breaking news. So Sunday, as you've probably seen on the news, Xi Jinping has now broken the term limits for Chinese leadership of the party. His presidency election is actually in March, but this is actually the more important one. He is now the sole controller of the Communist Party, which is the only political party in China, and basically he leads that and the military. So for a little review for folks, the Chinese government has one political party and 4 equal tiers of government. 4 equal tiers is the Congress, the prime minister, the presidency, the military, and judiciary. And we live in a civilian military. The military is subservient to the other 3 branches of government. Not in China. The military is a co-equal branch of government under the Constitution. Give that a little bit of thought, guys. It's a co-equal branch. So it means they're not subservient to the other branches of government. So, but Xi Jinping
they can dictate, policy, right?
Yeah, they can dictate their own column of policy.
Yeah.
So presidency is also the head of the military as well. So he controls 2 branches, and he will control the presidency come March. He will control the 3 out of 4 branches of government, and he also controls the appointments to judiciary. So he indirectly controls the judiciary, even because he controls all the appointments. And the big question and analysis now is regarding his executive committee. You have an exec committee. They have a sub, not a sub, but I mean, have like many different layers of committees, and you have all these other committees. And the Congress is composed of nearly 2,500 members. So, obviously the winner gets the pie. I mean, it's politics, right? It doesn't matter where you are in the world. And, his loyalists will be put on a number of different committees that have major influence on state-owned industries, government functions, and a whole litany of other issues. The big change over there is a few things. The party agreed to change the constitution to put the word common prosperity, which is the English translation of Xi Jinping's policy that goes back to a Maoist doctrine that everybody should have equal share of the wealth. However, what that means in real life, well, a little more complicated, right? I don't see Xi Jinping eating at the side street restaurant anytime soon.
Right.
So the propaganda versus reality, they'll lead to different things. Secondly, they made it very clear that Taiwan belongs to them in the Constitution, and they will take it back by force if so necessary, if they desire to. And his continue saber rattling about possible military action in Taiwan obviously creates a lot of uneasiness. No talk about ending COVID zero. It's still a lockdown city. Cities are still being locked down in China, which has a huge adverse effect on their economy, as well as all economies who are trying to visit the country, which is very difficult, but also import export. Supply chain seems to be very challenged on both sides of the border, and a lot of people are still doing a lot of analysis what's going on, but Asian stocks took a massive dive. And any Chinese corporations that have their stock in foreign holdings, like Alibaba, for example, the most famous one is in the New York Stock Exchange, all the companies took a dive as investors don't like the fact that they don't know what's really going on, and no speech about talk about opening up markets, and that's a big deal. We're going to open up markets, and we're not going to participate, as an equal partner of the other nations regarding, all our free trade agreements. And I know it's a little more complicated. I'm sure someone's going to write in and say, I don't know what you're talking about. The U.S. doesn't do this. The British doesn't do this. Blah blah blah. I get it. Okay, I'm not oblivious to larger companies larger countries like to exercise their weight. But I mean, you still have to be somewhat of a equal partner, and also. China has the geopolitical realm of its own regional area, right? They need to exert and want to exert more influence in the water around them, as well as, use North Korea as their puppet on causing aggravation with Japan and Korea, which they had some shots fired this past weekend, warning shots regarding North Korean merchant ship crossing into South Korea territorial waters. Chinese have a lot of influence in those things too, because it's the next door neighbor, right? Something that we don't have to deal with the U.S. because we have two big oceans, and our neighbors really don't want to fight us. So there are major trading partners. And Canada and Mexico are two of our biggest trading partners in the world. You go past China, next to up, Mexico and Canada as our biggest partners, right? It's just logical. So we'll see how it rolls out. There was one little interesting component where the former president of China, whose name just blanks out now, was let out.
So long, yeah.
Was let out. He's quite frail and old, and was let out in the midst of all this. Of course, speculations abound. Official state media says that he was not feeling well, but it took two guys to lead him out of there, and he grabbed the guy, grabbed him by the arm to get him out. And then, secondly, the state news media only showed an empty chair. They didn't show what foreign media got to watch. And even then, foreign media was actually segregated out into separate rooms, claiming COVID protocols. There was extreme isolation of the Congressional Party and relative leadership people in China from the public because of COVID. And even Beijing was essentially its own little country for this time period, where you had to undergo a lot of testing and vaccination and everything else before you can enter the borders of the city during the time of this conference. So, COVID became another opportunity for them to do heightened security using COVID as a reason. Now, imagine trying to do that around here. I mean, you're not shutting down the city.
No, there was already pushback given what happened. I don't think it could go any further.
No, but it's just such a different place of how we operate.
Yeah.
But I mean, time will tell. We'll see how it goes on. Maybe there'll be a new economic policy. China missed the GDP numbers, but what came ahead of consensus numbers globally. Their economy is slowing. It's a changing economy. And they're very obsessed about big, big, big. I mean, we're the opposite. We're trying to slow down because our currency is killing the planet by being too strong. Like literally, we're killing everybody with overly strong currency.
Right.
And trying to taper inflation and all this other problems we're all facing together. They're a country that wants to grow. Forget about inflation. They don't care. They just want to grow. And it's a state-run economy. Where the image of the president and image of the party is paramount, and they dictate the horizontal and vertical what is success. whether you all like it or not, we are a decentralized government. I'm part of the decentralized government. And because there's so many different layers and so many different components in the federal system. And we have a regulated economy. It's not a state-run economy where it's a balancing act regarding ensuring a free market's available and a balancing act to ensure consumers are protected, but also allow business to continue. It's a constant balancing act here.
Right.
In a regulated economy. You see that in the stock market. I mean, the government can't close the stock market, for example. In Shanghai, the government can go in and just shut the computers off. Here is an analysis done by the stock exchanges, all the different ones, including the little one in Boston. We do have a Boston Stock Exchange. We'll make decisions based on how things are going, looking at the big economic picture and make the tough calls on whether or not to keep going or close.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it will be, like you say, it'll be market driven, but it will be for self-preservation too. So they don't want to self-implode. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And, the Fed Reserve is independent of us. Actually, most first world Western European countries are all independent central banks. You saw that the British, when Liz Truss put out the proposal on these massive tax breaks for the wealthy and corporations, and increase their debt spending massively to cover the difference, claiming that future economic growth will resolve the issue, which, by the way, very rarely does a government investment result in equal return.
Right.
It's just that's not the purpose of the government investment. Government is supposed to spur job creation and local economic development, not create more tax revenue. The ratio doesn't work. And you know anything about public policy, it doesn't work that way. And the Bank of England, started responding. The markets in England responded. The business community responded. People on the streets responded very quickly, recognizing that this level of deficit spending is devastating. And literally an idea tanked an economy.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's words have power, when they're spoken by leaders for sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. What leaders say in public have a huge impact regarding everyone in their case. I've never seen a galvanization of literally people on Main Street all the way up to the central bank. Like, this is wrong. Yeah, words have power.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's bring it back home for a little bit. What's going on in your district these days, Jackie?
It's been fairly quiet. Congratulations to St. Anne's Church for the 100th anniversary. The Democratic City Community Breakfast was Sunday. We had the honor of having Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll, Attorney General perhaps elect. Well, these are primary winners. So Mayor Salem Kim Driscoll, former Boston City Councilor Andrea Campbell, as well as my colleague and government Senator Diana DiZoglio come by and say hello. And we, congratulate Kevin Cotter on receiving the Dennis Ryan Award, a longtime Ward 6 committee member, as well as the Ward 6 chair, and still is. I mean, he's retired, but he never truly retired from the union. I mean, business agent, and basically ran Local 12 Plumbers for many years. Great guy, well-deserved award for his work in the Democratic Party. And it was good to see some folks. I mean, it was our first in-person gathering since pre-COVID. It's been a while.
Yep. 34th annual breakfast, I think. Alicia Gardner is the chair of the committee. Yeah.
And Michael Morrissey was the MC and Food Michael Morrissey Forum. If you know what I'm talking about, I don't have to explain it.
The question is, will he be back next year?
He will. He marches by his own drum, and he will be back. Congratulations, Joe. I saw you at the in person at the Friends of Walson Beach, receiving your recognition for all the work you've done for the Friends of Walson Beach, but also the larger community on bringing attention to local events.
So, well, I appreciate the recognition, but it's not just me. We have a whole team here that helps put it all together. But it was very nice, and I really do appreciate it. But the friends are the ones that are the real winners. They're the ones that do all the work. I just tell the story.
It's a story, good story to be told, right? I mean, good works need to be heard, and we don't hear enough good works by people today. And sometimes we take for granted things we see without actually knowing how it became.
That's true. Yeah. It made me question, when I was there on Sunday, I said, oh, what's happening with the park over where Beachcomber used to be? I know the city bought that, but I don't know if is the state involved in that at all?
Not really. I mean, that was an eminent domain purchase by the city. I'm trying to recall. I mean, I think I tried to get a little bond money to help them out there one time. But the city, I believe the community preservation grant money
Yep.
is how they made that acquisition. Chuck Phelan, the Ward 5 council, pushed heavily for that acquisition.
Yep.
It is a floodplain, in case you guys are wondering. That
Yes.
parking lot is like,
It's below sea level, I think.
yeah, it's really, it gets filled up with water.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously, the neighbors are very concerned about any development on that land because of the shifting water. Anytime you take a piece of sponge away, the water looks for another place to sponge up.
Right.
And the residents back there, opposed the private guy's project, and I did too. And the city stepped up and took the property. At this stage, I'm not sure what's going to happen next exactly. I'm not being informed of much on what's going on there. And same thing in the Wallaston Center development.
Yeah.
I do. There's a couple of different things, but there is a preliminary plan for a much larger development, which I need to make time to. I'm just too many things. I got too many things going on. I need to make time to go talk to the planning department at some point.
Yeah, I know they're working with the Metropolitan Area Planning Council on, kind of an overall way forward and the whole area of Wollaston Center, not just where the Wally Theater used to be.
Yeah, it's been like a 7-8 year conversation. I mean,
Yeah.
things like taking over the Wollaston T parking lot, creating a multi-story garage with mixed use. Obviously, the Wollaston Theater section is not a contiguous, perfect shape. They need to take at least one house in the Santander, the former Sovereign Bank, to make it just one like perfect geometric shape.
Right.
It's a big lot, actually.
Yeah.
It's a pretty deep lot. And, obviously the Hancock Street building is probably perfectly fine, but you probably could build on top of that if you really wanted to. And of course, there's a lot of zoning issues. Newcomb Farms, that block in Newcomb Farms, the family closed that restaurant during COVID. They just basically retired.
Yep.
And that's a very big piece of property, which I believe is in transition of sale.
I believe you're right. Yeah, it's a mixed use development plan there. Yep.
And then, in the city needs to figure out how that, mixes in with their own ideas of an urban plan. Again, it's such a small space. You're not working with a whole lot of space here. It's actually very important for the city and the residents to get up and say something about how they like this development to look. Working with not a lot of land here. I mean, I was looking at the CVS lot in the back there over by 91 Clay Street. They're trying to figure out what to do there. And, I was talking to Chuck about this, and a little bit before my time, before you had the Tobin Towers at 80 Clay Street, that was basically a pond.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a huge water retention area down there. If you look carefully, it's all downhill from Hancock Street.
Yeah, and from Wollaston Hill also. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the bowl. Especially a bowl. And for any future development, it needs to be able to pump a lot of water out. Would it affect the residents uphill? Not likely. Again, you're above the bowl.
Right.
Unless the bowl fills to the brim, you're probably going to be all right. But if you're a resident inside the bowl on the way to the Supreme Liquor Store, on Greenleaf Street, heading that direction, you might have some issues. So, the city hopefully will have more meetings. Obviously, I need to get myself engaged in this. It is a local issue. There's no real state component. Massachusetts Area Planning Council is a quasi-state agency. It's not a state agency, but it is. It just basically does planning. It makes recommendations. So yeah, I just got a lot going on. It's I got to make some time this winter to go take a look.
Good thing you're an informal session then.
The other thing, informal session. I got a meeting today. I got a meeting with the Restaurant Association after this to talk about credit card surcharge issues and whether they can pass the cost to the customer, which is already passed to the customer inside your bill. So anyway, the cost of doing business includes, well, since I already started this can of worms, you when you pay something at the store, the cost of doing business is baked into the price. So, I mean, paying the wages, buying the product, keeping the lights on is all baked into the price of whatever you buy at a restaurant or retail. That includes credit card surcharges. So, to utilize your credit card, the business actually has to pay a transaction fee. It can range as high as 3.5%, depending on the size of the business and the agreement between them and the various credit card transactions. So, I mean, the little machine is something that the restaurant or retailer has to pay for.
Mhm.
And around the country, they have the ability to surcharge you, like 3.5%, 2%, 1%, whatever.
Really, on top of what they already pay?
Yeah, on top of what you already pay, as opposed to actually baking into the price of the product.
I see.
So it ain't hard to figure out, folks. I think I'm thinking, a couple of things. If you pay cash, you're subsidizing people using a credit card because you're paying more because you're not using a credit card. So that's
Unless you get a discount like at a gas station if you get a lower price for cash.
correct. Secondly, why don't you just keep baking the price in as opposed to forcing you to use cash, of which they will get the benefit because it's already baked into the price of doing business, right? And then if you're unable to use your credit card, I mean, obviously there's they got to have an input on local business and doing so. And then now you got a question, does that actually impact how consumers will reallocate their spending at a restaurant?
Yeah, I think most people prefer credit card now.
Oh, absolutely. Even I've moved to plastic over many years, not just because of things like reward points, but I'm a guy that uses Quicken, and I download my credit card transactions on there. Is actually a much better way for me to track my spending, on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And then if I'm looking like, oh well, what do I do here?
Right.
Adjust my budget at home, but also lets me catch fraud a little faster too, because I download transactions I can't identify.
Right, exactly. There's a paper trail, electronic paper trail. Yeah.
And all of us can go on the internet, set up an account of any of our credit card companies and, identify fraud and, utilize fraud protection, which is a whole other thing about data breach, which I worked on back in 2017 to craft a current law on data breach notification and remedies. But I'm doing that. I also have a meeting today with the representative from the Liquor Store Association. Obviously, question 3 is on the ballot. You can watch past episodes to talk about question 3. That being said, I'm going to get an update on what's going on there. I got an update from the spirits distributors this month. Tomorrow is Tuesday, Thursday. I'm going to go see Simmons College nursing program and science program, talking about licensing issues in the nursing industry, as well as the impacts on higher education. What's going on tomorrow? I got something else tomorrow too, which I can't think of.
You better check, otherwise you'll miss it.
Yeah, it's just a lot of these calls, and I'm obviously having lunch with some friends that I put off literally 6 months, and try to get my personal calendar up to date as well.
Yeah,
and we've been working for obviously candidates for the last few months, especially statewide candidates I backed in the primary. And try to help them get elected. And I get questions from committee members. You'd be surprised how often you get questions from committee members, as well as general membership in the House about policy issues under my purview. And I got questions on, like, people calling me about question 3. What does it do? I got to go to do an interview on local cable access or a local reporter. Can you give me the update on what's going on in the liquor industry and why we're doing certain things? So, even though that it is an informal session, as you can hear, I do check my emails. We are maintaining a social media presence, but I do not just attend local events, but also, outside city events pursuant to my job. And I'm not just responsive to constituents, I'll be responsive to my colleagues in the House and Senate as well.
It's a team effort, right?
I'm very thankful for my team and the staff, trust me.
Yeah. Yes.
Very good. People in the office that keep things on track, and I'll lose track every so often, but they remind me what's going on, and do some baseline research, and obviously I'll do some internet searches and read the general laws and regulations and so forth, and try to figure out what's happening before we start these conversations in these various industries.
And on that note, how do we get hold of you and your team, Techie?
Well, you can call 617-722-2370, 617-722-2370, and just smash a button. You get a voicemail if no one picks up. So don't be afraid just to try anybody. We do check our voicemails regularly. We are staffed in the state house on a rotational basis. We'll reevaluate after the next COVID wave on how we will deal with office issues. We're not the only one trying to manage these hybrid decisions. I have plenty of masks and hand sanitizer in the office in case you're wondering. Obviously you can, check our Facebook at State Representative Tacky Chan. You can see where I've been and what I've been doing. You have the Twitter account at Tacky Chan. And of course you have tackychan.org, as well as the state's website at malegislature.gov, and always with QATV.
Absolutely. The most important question, though, is what are you going to be for Halloween?
I'm not a Halloween guy. I think I treat me twice as a small child, but beyond that, not much more. I live in an unusual street in the sense that you can't find me. Down the Meadowbrook Road, I got a marsh in front of me, so let's put candy out for raccoons. The raccoons will help themselves. And also, and you guys, I think, will understand this. We're changing demographics in our neighborhoods. While I do live near Beach Window School, a lot of the families around here, kids have grown up in college and got jobs, and waiting for the next cycle. It seems like on my street, in the streets near me, it's always a cycle, right? You have kids, all the trick-or-treating, they get to like 14 or whatever, and they're not interested anymore. And then you're seeing them at the 7-Eleven, in droves. And in some summers, I see a lot less of them. I know. You guys know I'm a kid in the neighborhood. Obviously there's going to be a lot of trick-or-treaters inside, streets where people live and closer to homes. But also, Senior brought a good point. Check your candy. Don't just let your kids have it. Unfortunately, we live in an age of somewhat nefarious behavior. So simple prank ain't so funny when people get hurt. Mm-hmm. Secondly, I don't know if you saw this about drug trafficking using candy.
No.
Yeah, there's been some stories out there of people trafficking narcotics using candy. So like your bag of Skittles ain't a bag of Skittles.
Oh, I think I have seen something. It's made to look like the original, but it's not.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's all drug trafficking is all that's about. I don't think you can get a Skittles full of fentanyl in your children's candy, but people should be aware that illegal drug trafficking is something that's still very real, and people are still getting very creative about how to do that, and using very common products that we see every day when they give us a thought about. So again, I'm not trying to scare everybody.
No, just be aware. Yeah,
just be aware. That's all you need to be. And if you're one of those parents that you see that big bucket of candy and you're looking at your kids, you can always say you did the candy check and decide which ones are quarantined and confiscated for safety purposes from your child.
Safety purposes, right? Yes.
Yeah. Hopefully, no children are watching this right now.
That's right, because they're going to know their parents are stealing the good candy and leaving them with the lollipops.
Yeah, confiscated for safety reasons.
Well, next time we talk, it'll be November, Tacky.
Yes, it will be, and we'll be talking about predictions how the final election is going to go. The last debates are coming up for candidates. The final push is hard and on, and after election day, we can talk about not just local races, but the impact on Congress, which the globe is watching. Everybody in the planet's watching our races. There's plenty to talk about in politics as we head into the month of November.
As always. All right. Good to talk to you as always. Appreciate your time, and we'll catch up again soon.
Great, Joe. I'll talk to you in a week.